Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Overwatch Oasis podcast. Today we have a special edition. I have to apologize. Last episode I did quietly cancel. Didn't get to talk about some of those games, but we are back with a very special episode because this is the first time that we've had special guests. We have Wukong, team rep for Cosmic Omnix here.
Yes, hello.
Dr. Grill, team captain for Diving Phoenix.
Hello.
And a great teammate of mine, Xanyboy, star tank player for Pizza Planet.
Hello.
So, how are you guys doing today? Are you excited for the show we've got today?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Very been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have wanted me to do a more roundtable discussion, and I have floated around the idea. I've wanted to do it as well, but with my recording setup, it didn't really work. So, but I figured out a way. We're just in a PlayStation party right now, hanging around. So let's just get right into this, and let's start talking about the Week 17 matchups, which did happen a little bit ago, but I think we can kind of recall some of the details. In the first game of Week 17 was Pizza Planet versus White Walkers, and we did see this game be a 4-0 in favor of White Walkers, and me and Zanny obviously know what happened from the inside, but I just want to hear Dr. Grill and Wukong, what were your guys' thoughts about what you saw in that game?
Yeah, this is one of the ones that I did watch, and it was kind of upsetting because, I feel that it was just kind of sloppy. It didn't seem like there was a lot of communication. And the thing about Pizza Planet that I've always realized is that it seems like Pizza Planet is a very big mental game with them. Like, if they're feeling it, they're having, a good time, they're confident in themselves, they're gonna wipe, they're gonna have these amazing plays. But if they're just kind of, one person is off, or, the mood's not right, it kind of feels like they crumble. And it's that's kind of just what I realized at Pizza Planet, and it seemed definitely that the mood was just not there for them today, this Pizza Planet match, They could have given a fight with White Walkers, but it seemed like they just let themselves be kind of run over, which was really disappointing.
And what did you think, Wu?
I thought Pizza Planet could have fought a lot harder. I know it's your team, but I was expecting a 3-2 match,
Yeah.
tied to the last round, true tiebreaker round maps, and there was a lot of stuff going on both teams, but White Walkers always came out on top.
Yeah, and I can definitely speak from the inside that in terms of comms and team compositions, that was not one of our better games. I think Zanny can agree with me. We definitely did not. We weren't on point in what we wanted to do, and a lot of times we didn't go aggressive. We kind of just let White Walkers take the fight to us, and you just can't do that because we saw what Bleem was able to do with Charles and Richard. I mean, just staying alive in those fights, playing aggressive.
There was a moment on King's Road that I remember where we had won the fight. Korean had lagged out, but we had noticed that we only had one person on point, and White Walkers killed 3. And we weren't our one person on point. We had already taken 2 ticks, but we could have taken first point faster if we had just stayed on point.
Well, no one was on point. That was the issue. Or they were not standing in the area, because what happened is that you guys were close to third, and then it just went back down because somebody got off.
So here's what happened. I can tell the story. So essentially what happened is, and I don't want to blame one player because it's a team effort type thing, but Globdragon was the one who was on point and told us to go forward, and she was actually standing at the spot between where you capture the point and where the payload comes out of the garage thing. Literally that little small area where you're actually not capturing the point, and no one noticed until it was too late. We didn't notice it until the pause, and they were able to make it back before we were able to cap, and that was unfortunate. Granted, I don't know how much it would have mattered because we ended up capturing the point anyway, and perhaps we would have been able to complete the map with some time, and maybe the map would have been a little bit more interesting, and it would have gone to extra rounds. But just kind of one of those what if scenarios, I guess.
Yeah, it happens. There were a lot of shiny moments though on both sides. Like you can look at it that way too.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think me and Zanny know about this. Like, one thing that also did not help is Korean Wannabe was lagging pretty bad. Like, it wasn't like consistent lag. Like, he'd be fine, and then all of a sudden, like, he wouldn't notice a team fight start. Yeah. And despite that, he actually still played really well. He switched to McCree on Oasis, and
Got a 6K.
Yeah, almost. They were almost able to win University. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest microcosm of the series came on Anubis. Like, just so many times they couldn't make the clean rotations, especially going on to point B. Even point A had some tough moments. So yeah, one thing I will say, and I mentioned this in the power rankings, there's still a lot of new pieces for Pizza Planet. Zanny, you are relatively new to the team here. We got Ziptail, who's also kind of getting into the fray, and we have lost some players, so we're still kind of trying to figure stuff out, figure out the team comps that we want to run, and if we're able to do that, I definitely think we can compete with the best of them.
Pizza Planet definitely has like good pieces with them right now. For example, I really liked you on the Zarya, Zanny. I thought that you were really good on the Zarya, especially on King's Row. And you have Ziptail, who is this like amazing support player who was on C9. So Pizza Planet has like all these tools that they can mess around with. It's just knowing where to put them, what to use them for what at this point. And they can become a really unstoppable team if they just figure that out.
So that's that game. Let's move on to the next game, which was or did you have something to add, Wukong?
No, basically just if anybody faces White Walkers, you gotta stop them in the beginning. You can't let them run you over.
Yeah. I mean,
That's basically
you can't let team fights go too long against them, because Bleem will just keep that high charge going. The supports will keep the tanks alive. And they build ults incredibly efficiently. They're going to be a tough team to beat, and we'll kind of talk about that more as we go to the playoffs. But next, we will talk about the next game, which was Valhalla versus Nova. Nova clinching the 2 seed with this victory, and Valhalla, really struggling. They've lost some players recently. What do you think needs to be done for them to have a chance here in the playoffs?
Well, me and you, Kirby, actually were the ones commentating that game, so we kind of got like on hand, like live, like watching it. And what I saw a lot was like Valhalla not knowing what comps to run in which situations, because we mentioned on King's Row that they would have won King's Row if they ran a Lucio. And there were so many times where if they ran Lucio, they would have won.
Same thing with Oasis. They kept running the Moira Mercy comps. And yeah, they started off with the double birds on Oasis. So, I mean, it's not like we didn't see nice things. We did see on King's Row PowerPoint versus AJ on the Widow battle. That was actually incredibly entertaining. But another thing that we saw is, like, a lot of times we just didn't see the ults coming out from Valhalla. Like, again on King's Row we saw that they used the grab. The BX Hunter used the grab on Valhalla's attack, and they could have comboed it with the Dragon Blade when not PowerPoint was on Genji, and they just didn't do it, and they ended up losing the fight. So a lot of different things. How about what did you think about what you saw in this game, Dr. Grill?
What I realized a lot is that it just seemed that Nova was more organized here. This is one of the ones that I watched as well. And with Valhalla, it's like Valhalla, someone from Valhalla would get a pick or 2 picks, and no one would like take advantage of that, and that's a major issue. And like they have it. I think I mentioned this like many times for other people. Like they have these puzzle pieces, and they're just kind of scattered around. They're trying to get the puzzle together, but they're just not getting it just yet. And you have the pieces. It's just you gotta, put it all together. And then it's like, I feel like what Valhalla needs to do when they go into playoffs and they, start thinking about next season is to like focus on the players you have and focus on synergy with them. Then those call outs I think would get like followed up a little bit better. For example, when somebody does get like 2 picks, you can have like ravioli stains like, hey, I just got 2K tire. Then everyone can be like, okay, we gotta push in right now. Like it seems like that synergy is just not there. And my advice is just like focus on the players you have. Try and build up that synergy. You've got these great players. PowerPoint and Ravioli Stain are like a great DPS duo. When I watched them on King's Row together, I thought they did a great job together. Mm-hmm. It's just with having the synergy, getting callouts down to a T, and just like knowing when to push, knowing what to do. If they can get that down, they can be a great team. It's just right now they seem kind of scattered.
How about you, Wu?
It's the same thing. Like I think ever since Danny can play with them, they're just not falling apart. About how it just needs that leader to lead them in.
Yeah,
it's like I know
definitely.
every team has that leader. Like y'all probably have Psycho Mantis who leads y'all in. We have Dylan and me sometimes if I'm in there in Swede. Like I know DP y'all have Bambi.
Yeah,
Dr.
Bambi
Bill
or
too.
John.
I think you even take the charge in, don't you?
Yeah. If Bambi's dead, I usually follow up the callouts.
You need to have at least 2 people. Like that, I think Valhalla only had Danny and Nova. They have Chicky, Sidomia, like even Toking Panda. Like they're all leading in. Like, and I think that's what Valhalla was missing as a leader.
Yeah,
Because without Danny, it's
that's
just
a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
And
in this. Oh, you can go, Zane.
I was just gonna say there's one last thing I want to say about this is that Nova even had Opti, who was a leader for C9.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was gonna say.
And
This was his debut game for Nova.
And Nova also, what Nova did better than that Valhalla did was, like you said, Valhalla would get picks and not capitalize on them. Is that like Valhalla would get the picks and then not use ults because they think the fight is over when. Honestly, after that pick is done, you still need ults to win that fight because it still means they have two support.
It's like if you got the picks without using using an ult, that's great. But maybe you can use an ult to kind of like cement that this is our fight,
Yeah.
Because if anything, an ult can maybe get them off a point. Because it's like, oh, let's just die on point. If you're losing the fight, so that you can maybe get back in time. But using an ult will maybe either force them to back up or just take them out right away. And when you win, you obviously don't want to invest a whole lot of ults, obviously. But yeah, investing like one, like even if it's like a coalescence from a Moira to really sustain the team. Yes, a couple more things. I thought Valhalla did look the best when they ran a Hog Zarya comp on Temple of Anubis. They actually almost got the full hold, which could have put them back in the series. So perhaps that could be something that they work on for the playoffs. Get the BX Hunter on Zarya and Brow Daddy on Hog, who has also been playing pretty solid recently as well. So, and then the last thing I wanted to mention was the 6K Diva Bomb from
oh my god,
Diva Hut. That was again me. Zanny, you and I casted that game, and we were pretty speechless for the rest of the game. Like it's not often you see a 6K like that. Like,
and that's another thing too. Like getting those 6K bombs, those 6K ult team wipes is great, but ults can be used to just take 1 or 2 people out. This is what people are afraid of. They want that tire to hit 5, 6 people. But no, getting the 2 healers or 1 healer is good.
Like, when we had Change on DP as a coach, not anymore, but when we did, his advice was always, like, with your ults, if you can just get the Zen out of the fight, or get the Mercy out of the fight, or get the tank out of the fight, that is just as good as if you were getting a 6K.
Yeah. Really.
In fact, sometimes you could argue that the 6K is actually bad. Say like on Numbani, you're at that last corner and you get a 6K. Well, now they can regroup and get a
Oh, yeah,
6v6
good
by the
point.
end of the map. Like sometimes you actually would want to. Whereas if you staggered that out, you could probably just win the
Especially
map
if
like
when you
that.
get that 6K, the other team didn't use any ults. So they're coming back with ults and you're down one.
That's another argument with like EMP. Like sometimes I'm like, if you lose a fight where they use like EMP bomb, it's like, well, we didn't use anything, and they just use the best tool in their kit. Like, let's just come back and contest before it reaches points. So, but yeah, that does it for that game. And then the next game was Cosmic Omnics versus Tantalizers. Cosmic Omnics continuing to look really strong here as they enter playoffs. And what was your kind of thought process going into this game, Wukong, and kind of possibly how this team has kind of turned themselves around?
Well, I wasn't taking Tantalizers like an easy team because I will still fear them. I still fear them. Like I was doing research on them, seeing what they run. I was not going in like, oh, we're gonna 4-0. I was thinking we were gonna 3-2 them. I was thinking they were gonna 4-0 us. I was having bad dreams. Like I'm not over exaggerating. This team had me scared because we needed that
maybe
spot.
kind of a trap game, you know, like, and yeah,
Yeah.
you could have still moved up higher in the standings. That you almost got that third place spot. In fact, you tied with Diving Phoenix, but Diving Phoenix has the
Yeah.
head-to-head.
So,
So
so my team, I told them, listen, we're not taking this team lightly. Like they're still gonna be hard. They're still gonna give us a hard time. So we did research on them. I gave Dylan some old games of theirs. So I studied what they did, and even when they got Rabbit Duck, I got a little bit more scared with them with getting him. But I like quickly saw what he does, and it was just went into the first map a little overconfident, but our comms were pretty good. Like we knew what they were gonna do before they did. Like that's like how much I studied them. Their healers were our main priority.
hmm
Like that's what I told my team. I kept telling like go for the healers.
and maybe it's something you've learned from experience because you've been on the side of playing spoiler last season when you beat I Need Healing in that
I
crazy
remember
upset. Yeah,
we didn't want that to happen to us. That's
hmm
what I was like because I watched that game too. I did a lot of studying and watched that game while I was watching Town Laser games, and I was like, this could be us if we're not careful.
So one of the players that I was really impressed with in this game was Crossfire playing as Zen there on Oasis and Temple of Anubis. He was just fragging out, and I have to wonder like what. And this is a question for you, Wu. Like, what is his role? Is he gonna play more support here down the stretch, or is he gonna play some DPS, or do you not want to
It's
reveal?
it's a surprise, because just what we need. He's that utility player. Him and Wims are two like our utility backups, and they can play as starters though. But we have our starters, but Cross is there in case I can't make it, in case our fault can't make it, or we need that Zen player, and he can back up Dylan too. Like we have depth, and then Cross is just he's just gonna be that piece of the puzzle we need whenever someone doesn't show up or if he wants to come in.
And
He plays tank though. This was funny.
Okay. Yeah, so
it.
he's just kind of
Sorry.
an all-around flex. So
Yeah.
moving over to the Tantalizers side, we did see a couple nice things. I actually really liked Cave Doctor's Roadhog. I thought he was getting some early picks there and actually kind of taking advantage of Kakashi being a little over-aggressive at times. But it kind of goes back to the thing where it's like same issue with Valhalla is they would get those picks, but they wouldn't go aggressive on them, you know, the Tantalizers. So, and this question is kind of for Zanny and Doctor Who. What do you think Tantalizers need to do for next season? Because obviously they finished technically winless because their only win came from that C9 forfeit. So, what do you think they need to do in order to improve next season?
I think they need to focus more just on like what compositions they run. They need a little bit more of a wow factor. Like when I watch them, I sometimes like I don't know. I just sometimes they feel like they need to just kind of like focus on being a little more aggressive, focus on being like we're winning this, let's go, let's go, let's go. Just a little bit more urgency. Because sometimes when I watch like Tantalizers play, it feels like they just let teams like pounce on them, and it's like you have great players. Like your support line, I think is one of the best. I think Tantalizers have a great support line. They have Anime
I would
Samurai,
agree. Yeah.
Pixie. I think I just saw they just dropped Mugen Cypher, but Mugen Cypher was a great player on their team as well. So they, there's a great support line. You got great, as I said before, Valhalla. You got great pieces. Just got to figure out how to use them, and maybe things will get better next season.
So one thing I can say to talent is don't be afraid to recruit. If that person doesn't work out, they can talk to them and tell them that, you know, try out as many people.
Yeah,
I
like find somebody who works well with the composition that you got going.
What were you gonna say?
I used to play for Tantalizers, and one thing that I noticed while I was there is that, like me and Weiss Queen, who were both people who had left the team, were DPS players, and they kind of like they relied on one of us to be able to like pick up any slack during the map. They need to find someone who is like that designated player who they know is going to always do good. Because Cave, he does pretty good all the time, but then there's like Ishiman who isn't always there. Like he's a really good tank player, but he's not as present as some players. You have Crunchy, who can be very good at times. You have Rabid Duck, who can be really good at times. It's just like you gotta find someone who can always be like is a consistent like
Lead
glue,
them.
I'd say.
And
They need someone that's like
and perhaps like they also just need to do a better job at enabling those players to be the best that they can be, you know. Yeah, I think a lot of the biggest problems, other than just team compositions, is just that overall synergy. It just felt like we didn't see a lot of good coordinated plans from this team. Maybe earlier in the season we saw some nice things, but lately they definitely have been struggling. But I do hope to see them back next year. They've got a lot of great players, and I hope that they can bounce back here. We've seen a lot of teams that have struggled in years bounce back. I mean, literally, Cosmic Omnics went from technically last. I guess you could consider We the Ops last year. I guess if you want to consider the forfeited season, but Cosmic Omnics going from 11th place to now in the playoffs. You know, all it takes is just finding those players that you can more effectively build the team around. So, anyway, the next game. Oh, one more thing to add.
Sorry, not to toot my own horn, but it's not me either. It was just like RFOC brought people in, and basically we're good recruiters. We have good recruiters on our team. Basically, I didn't want to toot my own horn to say me, but no, RFOC has brought Dylan and Birch and Rocky. I brought in Cross and Slim Thick.
Yeah, no, you definitely deserve to toot your own horn. You've turned that team a complete 180. So, anyway, the next game we have to talk about is Diving Phoenix versus Corgicor, and Dr. Grill, you get to be our insider expert for this one. So this was easily the best game of the week, the only one that wasn't a 4-0. So, I guess explain to us kind of what Diving Phoenix did well on Oasis and Anubis, but maybe what happened, especially towards Havana and the tiebreaker map, which was Busan, correct? No, Nepal. So,
Nepal.
yeah.
I feel like with Oasis, I feel like with Oasis, we just didn't give up. Like we were just
Yeah,
throwing
that
bodies
was
on point when it was
that
99,
last
99, and we
fight
just were
on
like I was Lucio.
Gardens.
I was Lucio, just like wall riding her around, keeping myself alive and everyone else on point alive, and using ults like whenever we had the chance to do so before they could do anything about it. It was
And
just us like being a little bit more aggressive than them, I feel like, which isn't anything like that's just like hard for me to say too because like they were just being absolute monsters the entire match.
I
I think
will
after
say,
Oasis, I thought I played an entire set there.
yeah, well, it's funny, you watch the replay, and I think Oasis is actually longer than King's Row, or it's
Didn't you
like the
say it
same.
was like a 15-minute?
It was like a
Like it was
17 minute. Yeah, like the whole
yeah.
VOD is like 19 minutes, but the match itself is like almost 18 minutes. But speaking of that fight at the end of Oasis, one of the clutch plays was Freezy AJ coming in on a flank and taking out Eldritch Arcana.
Yes.
That was really huge. That was a great play from him. So then on King's Row we saw I don't remember if Gamer's Blood played on Oasis, but he comes in
He
on
didn't play on
King's Row
Oasis, but he came on
and
King's Row.
yeah, and he started to play really well. He was playing Genji, he was popping off. He played some Junkrat there on Anubis. Like, it, I, I published that mini podcast episode about whether or not Gamer's Blood makes Corgi Core a championship contender, and
They do. Oh my god.
yeah, it's one of those things. Like, if you
I
have
don't
Gamer's
like
Blood
thinking-
comp,
I don't like thinking that like one player makes any
oh
team
yeah, for sure.
better. So I would disagree with that. I think Corgi Core has found what they want to do. Like they kind of went through this like kind of rebuild after losing a lot. You know, some people who were like really big key components of the team. Urabi stepping up as this captain role. I think
Yeah.
Urabi has finally like settled into his role as captain. He's figured out what he wants to do. I think that's why corgis are starting to become a little bit more of a threat now than they were at the beginning of the season. Because at the beginning of the season, they were kind of rocky. I think having Gamer's Blood just a good thing for them.
Yeah.
I think one thing about corgis is that they lost 4 of their best players before the season started, and their like main captain Uravity had to take over as that captain, like you said. And then midway through the season, when they like seemed to get into a little bit of their stride, Timepiece left, which was
Yeah.
another big piece of their tank line. But they seem to have picked it up with the pickups after that. But for sure, one thing I noticed that game was it was a lot of back and forth where you would see Diving Phoenix be very good on one map, and then Corgi just immediately turn the momentum. It was just a lot of back and forth.
It was like 2 rams butting heads the entire time. That's kind of like how I like analogies. That's my analogy for the
That
day.
is a good analogy. One thing I will say about this game is I think that we saw whenever Diving Phoenix ran the Ryan Hog comps with Bambi and
John Hawk.
John
or
Hawk, yeah.
Chuck.
Yeah,
I think it was John.
I thought that was their strength, and then I thought Corgi's strength was when they ran the brawl with the Ryan Zarya. And not that Ann Hopkins looked bad on the Roadhog, far from it. He was actually very good as well. But I think those are definitely the comps that we saw being the strongest from the teams. And I think maybe one of the reasons that Diving Phoenix started to slip at the end of that match is because they kind of started to go off of those comps. They started playing like Wrecking Ball. And I don't know if that was the play.
Yeah, the Wrecking Ball. You mean the Ham Hog comp that we ran on Havana?
Yeah.
It worked for first point, but we definitely should have swapped it off. I think one big thing that we learned from this is just making swaps faster. We definitely got a little too comfortable on things that we probably should have swapped off of and should have like experimented a little bit more. Kings Row and I think Havana were 2 of those, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I will say Corgi Core also looked pretty good when they played a Winston Ball comp on Kings Row. I think they used it to save the map, but then they stayed on it and were doing a really good job at aggressing. So it might be just one of those things where I'm actually excited to see this rematch in the playoffs, and it might just be a thing where maybe each player on Corgi was just playing a little bit better than everyone on Diving Phoenix, and that just
We'll
kind of
see. Not
edged
only
them
that
out.
though, but it was Weeby Ghost debut match with us as
That's
well.
true.
If I remember
Yeah, and
correctly.
he
So we
did,
did have. Yeah, she's
or
pretty
she played
talented.
pretty well. Yeah,
We're definitely
especially
still figuring out the synergy.
I liked her because she played Echo on Havana, right? I liked that.
Yes,
I
yes.
liked that
Echo is
Echo
one of her
Sombra
favorites.
comp. Like, obviously, you should have swapped off it for second point, but it looked like the dive was really clean on point A. So, definitely a lot of things that I think Diving Phoenix can still take away from this map that was very good. And then, unless you guys, do any of you have something to add? Wukong, do you have anything to add about this game?
I'm excited for the rematch.
Yeah, I
I
think
d-
it's gonna
I'm
be.
gonna.
It might be 5 maps again, honestly. And I will be very sad to see one of those teams have to lose in the first round.
This is like finals probably worthy of watching.
Honestly,
Like,
yeah, it might be that good.
You,
So
yeah.
you know what was very sad to see in that match though?
what?
Is that I don't think I've seen it a lot this season either. Is that Honey hasn't been playing Tracer. I think one thing that is a strong suit of that DPS line is Honey's Tracer. You saw her play Sombra a lot, and I thought that was very good. But like where they were shutting down the Sombra, I thought Tracer would do better in those situations just because of the more damage and the ability to maybe annoy the backlines even more and use those pulse bombs to get a pick or two every other fight or every fight. So I just thought it was just a thing about of Diving Phoenix maybe not switching off the Sombra.
Yeah, but perhaps. And the final game that we had was Duck Duck Dive versus Tater Pots. Tater Pots getting a win at the end of the season. It's one of those things where you look back actually and you see the Tater Pots game versus Valhalla where K2 barely touched the point at the end of Busan and Valhalla were able to turn the fight. Like if he hadn't touched and Tater Pots get one more map anywhere in the season, they would be in the playoffs right now.
Yeah. It just sometimes it comes down to those like really tiny plays.
Yeah. But we did see in this match some nice things from Duck Duck Dive. I actually really liked our Demo's battle with Chase. They had a really nice battle on Oasis. Chase kind of got the last laugh. He closed out, I believe it was City Center with a Dragon Strike. One,
Oh yeah, that dragon was huge.
yeah, it was. One thing I will say about Duck Duck Dive is I think a lot of times they tend to over alt. Like, not only when they win fights, but when they lose fights too. They really try to turn fights around that maybe they already know that they've kind of lost.
Yeah, I was seeing when I was watching the game, I saw like evenly matches, even fights, clean fights. It was just like kind of like a vanilla Overwatch match between Tater Pots and Duck Duck
Yeah.
Dive. Like it was just a casual brawl. Like Chase had those exciting moments, but
Yeah,
it was
he
much
did.
it I saw.
He did have
I,
a great game. What were you gonna say, Zanny?
I was gonna let whoever was speaking finish if they had
Oh,
anything.
that was it.
Uh, I thought that the most exciting part was on King's Row, where I think Duck Duck Dive had I think they had gotten an ult that got like 3, or they had killed 3 in the fight, and then I think it was Chase on Reaper, Chase Swanson on Reaper, who got like a 4K and turned the whole fight around. It was that I think that was the most exciting part because you saw like one whole fight get determined by that one ult by Chase Swanson. So I thought that was interesting to see.
One thing I will say, so one of the observations I made was Insane is now back on Duck Duck Dive, and I feel like a lot of their success comes down to whether or not they can follow up on his aggression, because he's a pretty aggressive Ryan at times, and sometimes it worked out, like he went aggressive, got the peel, and they were able to win fights, but other times, you know, he just kind of died. Obviously, if you charge into the team 5v1, it's easy to go down, so perhaps that's what they need to do in order to have more success next season, is continue to help Insane play the way he wants. What do you think, Dr. Grill, in terms of what Duck Duck Dive need to do to get back to being that championship contender next season?
I think that just working on the tank line a little bit, because I feel like Dr. Dive just got really unlucky when it comes to tanks this season. The tank they were going to play hit Diamond, and he's on Duck Duck Goats and does very well on there. But it's just like a lot of unluckiness, and they've had like tanks leave, they've had tanks, you know, people go into like flexing the tank to try and help out, you know. I think like focusing on like trying to strengthen that tank line would definitely benefit them. Like they have, I will always say, like Duck Duck Dive, strongest support line in the entire league. I know Villain's no longer on that team, but they had Bill, they have KDB, they have Mystic Angel, they have, I know Haley used to be on that team, but not anymore from what I remember. Like, strongest support line, still like Mystic Angel, KDB, super, super strong, you know, for the supports. So
Even Daddy Ease uses.
Yeah. Sorry, I forget sometimes. Everyone who plays. But like, you know, they have these amazing players. They are no far from bad. Like, very far from it. It's just that, like, they got kind of unlucky this season, and that happens. So they're kind of just going, they've been trying to rebuild for, like, the entire season. So I think for the off season, they just need to focus on just strengthening the team, practice, and they will definitely, like, shine next season.
And do we have anything?
Oh, go ahead.
Wukong? No, you can go.
I'll say, just mainly one advice for all the teams: don't just look in this server. Reach out to every server. Reach out to people you find in comp, because you never know what you find out there.
I think like there's like a whole Reddit thing too for like people looking for teams. Like I've heard of like people finding teammates from there as well. It's like you can like find people almost anywhere if you just look hard enough.
Just don't rely on just the server.
So that kind of does it for the matches from week 17. So we are actually going to take a quick break as we break between part